Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome back to our YouTube channel once again. And it is my hope and prayer that this video is actually going to find you guys in good health. Personally, I am fine, as you can see. Kisumu is also fantastic, and maybe you could also let me know where you are watching the video from, the county or the country, in case you are out of the republic. Ladies and gentlemen, Raila Odinga yesterday dropped bombshell. According to Raila Odinga, Kenya Kwanza government, through William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, invited Madam Hassan Samia Suluhu of Tanzania into the country to come and initiate peace talk with Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. Madam Samia Suluhu left Tanzania, arrived into the country, stayed for 2 days without seeing anybody from Kenya Kwanza government. William Ruto snubbed Madam Samia Suluhu. And Samia Suluhu then took the next available flight to Tanzania. In this video, I want us to look at two things. Whether Madam Suluhu was actually into the country as alleged by Raila Odinga. And I want to prove to you that she was actually in the country. Number two, I want us to look at why Kenya Kwanza government, led by William Ruto, decided to snub her after the invite. So I want you to take a few seconds listening to Raila Odinga dropping the bombshell before we proceed.
There have been also attempts from outside. I can now say it here that the president from Tanzania came here 2 weeks ago at the invitation of President Ruto to mediate, and she was kept waiting, not from our side. We were available, but the other side was not available. She spent 2 nights here, and it was all in vain. Other people have tried. Right now I know the other people are also trying, but he's the one who's resisting. So he basically knows what he wants. I myself have said I'm ready to sit with other people to discuss these issues. He is actually pretending, is living in delusion that we don't have a crisis. But we have a serious crisis that requires patriotism to resolve. And we are ready ourselves.
Now, that's Raila Odinga. And the biggest question is one, was Madam Suluhu in the country? If you ask me, the stories about Madam Suluhu being in the country actually emerged in the Republic of Kenya some 2 weeks ago. For those who follow the politics of this country, I just want to take you back on, let me just make reference to State House Facebook page. On, I think let's just move straight to on 15th. On 15th, not 15th really, on 14th of July this year, at State House, this is what State House posted. Africa must support Africa Export-Import Bank. And it says President William Ruto has asked Africa to support the Africa Export-Import Bank. He said Kenyan appreciate partnership with the Afrimex and especially the support the bank has extended to the country's development agenda. And those who attended this meeting, and that's why I want you to pay very close attention, the first photo there is former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. What do you think brought Obasanjo into the country? Because Obasanjo does not have any interest in this particular meeting. Then you see the second photo there are some leaders there. The third photo, there are some leaders there, Kenya government official. The fourth photo is also interesting. There is Obasanjo seated to the right of William Ruto, which means in this meeting, Obasanjo was actually a valued contributor. Now, you go again, the next photo, Obasanjo. Then you move further, you get other photos. Then there's now this photo of Obasanjo alone, then followed by William Ruto, and then the Cabinet Secretary for Finance. If you ask me, from this photo alone, the presence of Obasanjo raises eyebrows. And I remember a friend of mine telling me that Obasanjo was actually in the country to as part of the peace process. Then to further reinforce this, let me just take you to something which I think the Star newspaper posted around that time. Star newspaper had this story, which was now on the 19th. It says, sources whispered to the corridors that secretive high-level talks said to be facilitated by a top continental leader has been in Nairobi since last week are ongoing. So the story has been there. And those who are in the know will tell you that Madam Suluhu was actually in one of those exclusive hotels in Mount Kenya. So Madam Suluhu was actually in the country. And to prove this further, let us go to Moses Kuria. There's something which Moses Kuria posted. And I know most of you sometimes assume these things are just normal. There's something which Moses Kuria posted. Let me just get it. Twitter. Moses Kuria on 15th, because I talked of Obasanjo and that post on 14th. On 15th, this is what Moses Kuria posted. So you wait for us to vote for him. Now you have forced him to a handshake. Tuache kwamata. Over my dead body. So Moses Kuria, you know Moses Kuria, he speaks the truth. And sometimes it's just important to check the time Moses Kuria is making some tweets. This tweet Moses Kuria made at 22 hours 17 minutes, which means at 10 in the night. By that time, Moses Kuria is no longer Moses Kuria. He's Moses Kuria with something else. So he normally speaks a lot of truth at that time. So which means by this time, these Kenya Kwanza leaders were actually resisting any attempt of meeting with Madam Suluhu. Then, it doesn't end there. You know, William Ruto also has his people. One of them is Kipchumba Murkomen. Let me take you to a post by Kipchumba Murkomen. Around that time also. Let me just get it. This is what Kipchumba Murkomen posted. It is still my prayer and considered opinion that Honorable Raila should use his influence to call off the planned mass action. He has the ability and responsibility to do so. There is no reason why we shouldn't resume the parliamentary talks. Now that Azimio are clear that they don't want to be part of government in any form or shape, whether Nusumkate or handshake, then I don't see reason why we can't prosecute the issues raised using our democratic institution. President Ruto offered a dialogue as a solution, and those of us in government supported his proposal 100% without exemption. I urge our Azimio friends to be mindful of the nation and resume the talks. If you read deeply this tweet, there's a point which Kipchumba Murkomen is suggesting here, that Azimio have made it very clear, because Azimio had made it actually very clear that they don't want anything to do with Nusumkate. They didn't want anything to do with the handshake. They were just ready for the talks for those reforms. But Mount Kenya leaders were insisting that Raila Odinga is trying to sneak into the government through the back door. And that explains why they could not allow Ruto to meet Madam Samia Suluhu. So in this video, I want to try and explain to you guys in simple terms why Madam Suluhu came into the country, left the country without meeting Kenya Kwanza government. But before we do that, in case you're watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click that subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. And without any further ado, let us dive in. And by the way, before we dive in, allow me to thank the following people. You are seeing their names on the screen there for the coffee which I received earlier or later yesterday evening. You can also do the same using the numbers you are seeing on the screen. A cup of coffee is only 200 bob, but you can do more. Thank you guys. And now let us dive in. Why do you think Kenya Kwanza government decided to snub Madam Samia Suluhu after inviting her? Again, if you read William Ruto's tweet yesterday, it is clear that William Ruto is also conceding to what Raila Odinga is saying, but in a different way. But why do you think they refused to meet with Madam Suluhu? For me, number one, the resistance from Mount Kenya leaders. You see, around that time, that's when the Mount Kenya leaders now started this issue of Raila nataka nusu mkate, we don't want nusu mkate, you know, those kind of things. William Ruto finds himself in a situation that he can't discard Mount Kenya as long as Raila Odinga is not with him. Let me tell you one thing. In case Raila Odinga were to agree with Ruto, and Raila agrees to support Ruto, Ruto will discard Mount Kenya. But he can't as long as Raila Odinga is still on the other side. And that's the reality. Right now, William Ruto is operating under the mercy of Kenya Kwanza government, of Mount Kenya leaders. Just like Uhuru Kenyatta was operating in his second term and first term under the mercy of William Ruto. He feared that if Ruto were to leave and Raila Odinga was on the other side, then Raila Odinga was going to kick him out. That's the same thing William Ruto is finding him. That's the same situation William Ruto finds himself in. He can't do minus Mount Kenya. In fact, William Ruto without Mount Kenya is almost impossible. But Mount Kenya used all their energy for 15 years to talk about Raila Odinga. Their campaigns were around Raila Odinga. How do you expect them to go back to their people and tell them, okay, we broke out from Jubilee because Raila had a handshake with Ruto. But now because we are in government, Raila has a handshake with Ruto, and then it's okay. So they can't allow, Mount Kenya can't allow that. That's why the tweet by Ruto is still very, very interesting. So that's number one. Number two, the truth of the matter is that most Kenya Kwanza leaders view Madam Samia Suluhu as a close associate of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. For those who followed Uhuru Kenyatta and Madam Suluhu when Uhuru was the president, they were very close. They were very, very close. They would support each other. And I know for sure Madam Suluhu is still close associate of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And because of that closeness, most Kenya Kwanza leaders were of the view that if Suluhu is a close associate of Uhuru, then there's a chance that Uhuru Kenyatta was going to influence certain decisions which he was going to make. Because of that, number three, Kenya Kwanza didn't want to negotiate when the country was at war in court. You know, sometimes when you negotiate when the country is at war, then, like for example, when Azimio were on the street, then they were going to negotiate, or they were going to go walk into the talks from a disadvantaged position. So they wanted the talks to end first. Raila Odinga did not call off the talks. The demos. So they didn't want a situation where they go for the demos while the country Raila Odinga didn't want to call off the demos. Number three, Kenya Kwanza didn't want to get into the talks with Madam Suluhu while the country was at war. You know, when you go into negotiation and you are still at war, and by that time, the people who are cornered were actually Kenya Kwanza. They were going to enter into that room from a disadvantaged position. Raila Odinga and his team had actually refused to call off the demonstrations. So William Ruto said, okay, because of that, your refusal to call it off, we are not going to meet until it's called off. But since you have refused, let me deal with you first. And that's why you saw that kind of violence being meted on Azimio supporters. So now that Raila Odinga has called off the talks, the demos, I want to assume that it's part of this deal. So that's number three. Number four, in my view, I think Azimio demands before talks were also on the extreme. You know, William Ruto is saying that we can get into the talks. But I want you to agree that I'm the president. Then Azimio launches the signature collection. And what was the objective of that signature collection? Simple. William Ruto's legitimacy. And within the first day, 2 million people signed. What are you telling Ruto? Ruto was elected with 7 million votes. Already 8 million people have signed that petition. So the issue of Azimio demands probably contributed to failure by Kenya Kwanza and team to make an appearance to these talks. And lastly, probably, the idea of bringing Suluhu into the country might have been just the strategy of Kenya Kwanza to try and slow down the demonstrations. The demonstrations had actually kicked the momentum. They had picked so well. Kenyans were ready for them. Then you call Madam Suluhu and you inform Azimio. Then from there, they say, okay, let's see. That's why around that time, Kalonzo and Martha Karua would address the press, minus Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga didn't want to appear because his appearance was going to energize his supporters. So I don't know what you think. But for me, it is sad that a sitting president can actually be invited into the country, then being snubbed without any word. For me, I don't find that to be right. Maybe you might have a different opinion. So let me know that opinion in the comment section. And again, if you watch this video up to this point, please let me know in the comment section by carrying up your hand, just by pressing that thumbs up button and then saying present. I'm going to comment on all those who are going to say present. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day. Bye-bye.